Hello and welcome into the Pioneer Weekly Recap and Preview Show. I'm Brian Stayton. As Tusculum University Athletics heads down the final stretch for a lot of our fall sports, let's take a look to see what's happened as some of our teams compete for the South Atlantic Conference Championships and placement into those championships. Let's start with volleyball from last week, and the volleyball team going to take on a tough Lincoln Memorial team in Harrogate on Tuesday of last week were swept 3-0, and then on Friday, Tusculum swept by last year's conference champ Anderson, also 3-0. But on Saturday, they end that a 5-set thriller a month ago at the Eliezer Arena in Newberry, South Carolina, and the Tusculum women were able to get a win 3-1, and that was this past Saturday for the volleyball team that's back in action again this week as they will take on Lenore-Rhyne from Pioneer Arena. That'll be a Friday start, and then on Saturday, volleyball will host Catawba as well as they near the end of the regular season. Last week as well for men's golf, they finished 3rd out of 10 out of the Walters State Fall Classic, and cross country also competing last week at the Lenore-Rhyne Classic. The Tusculum men finished 2nd out of 5, and the Tusculum women finished 2nd out of 6 competitors. We'll talk a little bit more about cross country coming up as well. But let's turn our attention now to men's and women's soccer. And on the women's soccer side of things last week, big week for them, a lot of overtime games, and then Saturday happened, unfortunately. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But women's soccer against Lincoln Memorial, one of those teams ranked in the region this past week. On Wednesday, they defeat Lincoln Memorial in OT, scoring late 1-0. Then they would take on a Mars Hill team. It would be senior day, and for the Tusculum women and Coach Mike Joy, and for him, a lot of these seniors, a lot of the time and effort that they have put into things, they would get take on Mars Hill, get all the pomp and circumstance, everything that happens around the contest. Tusculum would build a 1-0 lead on a Sonia Balmert goal in the second half, but they would be tied with about 3.5 minutes to play in the contest, and then in the second overtime period, actually would give up the game-winning goal as well, and Mars Hill would upset Tusculum on their senior day. Again, that was on Saturday. So the Tusculum women this coming week, a big week for them as well, as women's soccer will travel to Columbus State in Columbus, Georgia, and that will be on Wednesday. And then on Saturday, women's soccer will be at Coker in Hartsville, South Carolina. Always a tough place to go just because of the length of time that it takes to get there in Hartsville, South Carolina. So for women's soccer now, 7-5-3 on the year, 4-3-2 in the league, vying for a home berth in the South Atlantic Conference tournament, which again will be until next week, and then the finals of that on the weekend. So the final regular season week for soccer coming up for both the men and the women. On the men's side of things last week, and this on the soccer side, they traveled to Lincoln Memorial against in Harrogate. They would fall down 2-0 to regionally ranked LMU, and they would get a late goal to make it 2-1. Ayuk Tambe would score in about the 69th minute in that contest, but could get no closer as Lincoln Memorial would get the victory there. Then on Saturday, the Tusculum men would also celebrate their senior day. A lot of seniors for Coach Alan Vitale this season, and Dario Ubich would score both goals for the Pioneers, and they would knock off Mars Hill. Big win for them. Mars Hill, one of those teams ranked just outside of the regional rankings, just like Tusculum, one of those teams with very like records, and they would get a 2-0 victory. Men's soccer will travel to Lee University on Wednesday in Cleveland, Tennessee, a 7 o'clock start for them before they travel to Hartsville, South Carolina, and take on the Coker Cobras, and that will be on Saturday to wrap up their regular season. Men's soccer at 7-6-1 and 5-3-1 in the South Atlantic Conference, and again, they too vying for a home playoff berth in the South Atlantic Conference tournament, which would be held the following week with the semifinals and finals at Rock Hill, South Carolina. Let's take a look, see what's going on this week. Women's volleyball taking on Carson Newman. It is the battle of US 11E, not only for the football team, but also for volleyball. They'll take on Carson Newman this week. Talked about where men's and women's soccer will be. Women's soccer against Columbus State, and the men's soccer team will be at Lee. It is the battle of US 11E, and for the football game, with a lot of that stuff, we do the battle of the Mossy Creek Pioneer Blood Drive Bowl. Give the gift of life, give blood. Medic Regional Blood Center will be at several locations throughout the week where you can stop in and say, I'll donate, then say, go Pioneers, and that will count towards the Tusculum University side of things. Tusculum has won 8 of the last 10 of these. Like to do that in the football game on Saturday. But they'll be at the Niswonger Student Commons Thursday, and they'll also be on the Tusculum Morristown campus on Thursday, in Greenville from 10 to 6, and in Morristown from 11 until 6. Friday, women's volleyball will actually host Lenore Ryan at Pioneer Arena. It will be senior night for them. Men's basketball starting the season. J.T. Burton and the squad will travel to SEC-bound Razorbacks, Arkansas, Little Rock. We're heading to Little Rock and going to play the Arkansas Razorbacks in an exhibition game Friday, just the first of 3 Division I exhibition games for the men's basketball team. And the following week, it'll be the University of Tennessee and Cincinnati. Then Saturday, it's women's soccer at Coker, men's soccer at Coker, women's volleyball taking on Catawba, and the football team hosting Carson Newman. Some congratulations this week as well. Cross country, Jackson Beeson has been named the South Atlantic Conference AstroTurf Runner of the Week. Not only that, he was also the Zaxby's Athlete of the Week for what Jackson Beeson and this cross country team for the Tusculum men has finished 2nd out of 5 in the Lenore Ryan Classic. As we talked about what the cross country team is doing, they're also wrapping up and getting ready for regionals as well in the South Atlantic Conference Championship. From the women's side of things, congratulations to Bailey Bossler from women's soccer. Not only was she the Zaxby's Athlete of the Week, she was also the South Atlantic Conference AstroTurf Defensive Player of the Week as well. So a big week for Bailey Bossler along with Jackson Beeson for cross country and women's soccer. Congratulations to you guys. Well, another week, and let's have it, and I'll make it be a very good week as we wrap up regular season for fall sports. And as we hinted about, basketball season is just around the corner as the men's basketball team will get into some action this week for J.T. Burton, Devin Carter, and his squad getting ready for the exhibition season as well. We'll talk about that and a lot more. Don't forget, you can always find the latest right here online at TusculumPioneers.com. Get the latest updates, stories, schedules, stats for your favorite sport here at Tusculum University. For all of us here at the Pioneer Sports Network, and until next week, I'm Brian Stayton. Go Pioneers.